Today marks 50 years since the start of riots at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. A police raid led to a backlash that fueled the modern-day gay rights movement. CTM lead national correspondent, that's David Begnaud, is at the Stonewall Inn with the story of two men who witnessed that raid and the clashes that followed. David, good morning to you.
Gail, good morning to you. It happened in 1969, and you know who did it? The NYPD's Public Morals Squad. That was a thing back then. They raided the bar, but gay bars were commonly raided during that time period. What happened that was different was as the patrons were kicked out onto the street, they started to fight back. They picked up everything they could on the street and just started throwing it at the bar. And that led to the movement, which spread nationally. There was a bartender who was there that night, still works in the bar today. We start our story with him.
Hi, David. How you
Very
doing?
nice to meet you.
Same here.
He calls himself Tree Sequoia. He was a 30-year-old bartender when police raided the Stonewall.
We knew it was another raid when all of a sudden we heard a crash and somebody threw a rock through the window.
But this time, Stonewall patrons resisted arrest. The violence escalated, and eventually hundreds of people joined in. Mark Siegel was there too. Stonewall turned him into an activist.
From the very first day, it was, we're going to take back our identity. We're no longer going to allow society to label us. We will be out loud and proud. And in your face.
In 1973, Siegel stormed a live broadcast of the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. He held a sign saying gays protest CBS prejudice, a message seen by millions of viewers. But Cronkite heard his message.
The homosexual men and women have organized to fight for acceptance and respectability.
Gay people have the same right.
Months later, CBS became one of the first networks to discuss gay rights. Just recently, the NYPD Commissioner, James O'Neill, apologized to the gay community.
The actions and the laws were discriminatory and oppressive.
Do you remember where you were when you decided I have to do this?
Wasn't sure I was going to do it until I got up to the podium, quite frankly. I said, you know, this has to be done. Otherwise, New York City is not going to be the place that it needs to be. Despite the progress made since the riots, statistics show that tolerance for LGBTQ Americans, particularly among young people, has sharply decreased from 63% in 2016 to 45% last year.
A special bar.
Sarah Kate Ellis is president of GLAAD, one of the nation's leading gay rights advocacy organizations.
Finish this for me. Our story today is
about joining forces with all marginalized people.
Since Stonewall, Pride has been a looking glass.
For 28-year-old Raymond Braun, the Stonewall riots are history, but it's an event that motivated him to travel around the country to places like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a city that held its first gay pride parade in 2014. A journey documented in the film State of Pride.
We should be thinking about prides in literally every community. Even if 20 people show up, it's a couple rainbow flags and a picnic table. That's important.
You can't legislate acceptance. If you are not accepted, you are not safe, and you are not going to move through this world with the same rights, no matter what, as anybody else. Our stories are our most powerful tools for building acceptance.
You know, in 2016, President Obama declared the Stonewall Inn a national monument. So the Gay Pride March here in New York City happens on Sunday, and it coincides with World Pride. More than 2.5 million people are expected. Tony, I will leave you with this. Mark Siegel, who you saw in the story, who interrupted Walter Cronkite's newscast, said to me this week when I interviewed him, he said, David, if you remember nothing else, remember this. Pride means visibility.
David, thank you very much. And you can hear more of David's conversation with Mark Siegel about Stonewall 50 years ago on today's CBS This Morning podcast. You can listen wherever you like to get your podcast. If there was ever proof that history doesn't move in a straight line, it's the fact that months after Stonewall, the bar became a juice bar, then a bagel shop, then a Chinese restaurant, then a shoe store. Now it's a national monument and open again as a bar.
But I don't want to miss the words that he said. I like that. Pride means visibility. And what the woman in the piece said, if you are not accepted, you are not safe. It's very important to remember.
And a very powerful line, you can't legislate acceptance,
exactly
which is absolutely true. So you have to change minds.
And by the way, you couldn't get in the studio today and protest because we got security.
Don't even try it. That's how I got in.
Yeah, don't give anybody any ideas. But that was remarkable to see.